Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Cheltex Multimedia live stream, streaming to you on this 10th of April 2021 from Brisbane. And today we begin the program with a heavy heart as the news of Prince Phillip, or Duke of Edinburgh, being no more comes to hand. And we pay tribute to him. And first of all, let's hear from our Governor-General as he breaks the news to Australians.
It is my solemn and melancholy duty to advise that His Royal Highness Prince Phillip, the Duke of Edinburgh, has passed away earlier today in the United Kingdom. I have informed the Prime Minister, and I understand that the Government will make announcements in due course concerning funeral arrangements and how Australians may express their condolences. This is a sad and a historic day. As we mourn, we should also reflect and give thanks for His Royal Highness's lifetime of service, devotion and commitment. Service beginning with his time in the Royal Navy, including during the Second World War, when he was mentioned in dispatches while serving as a young sub-lieutenant on board HMS Valiant. Devotion to Her Majesty the Queen, whom he married in 1947 and lovingly supported throughout his life. And commitment to the Commonwealth and the many hundreds of organisations, including many here in Australia, of which he was a patron and for whom he was a passionate advocate and supporter. His Royal Highness visited Australia 21 times, including on each of Her Majesty's state visits. He was a popular, engaged and welcome visitor to our shores. His impact was profound, not least on the more than 775,000 young Australians who have participated in the Duke of Edinburgh's International Awards Scheme since it began here in 1959. Many Australians will have a personal memory of His Royal Highness, and many around the world will in coming days reflect on his remarkable life and legacy. As we reflect and remember, we think especially of Her Majesty the Queen and of her family, who have lost a beloved husband, father, grandfather and great-grandfather. On behalf of the Australian people, I extend our deepest condolences to Her Majesty and her family, to the people of the Commonwealth and to all people who will share in this sad news. We give thanks for the Duke of Edinburgh's service, his loyal and loving devotion to Her Majesty and his commitment to Australia, the Commonwealth and all her people. May he rest in peace.
And may he rest in peace. And that was the message there from our Governor-General, Sir David Hurley. And of course, today is a very special program, so it's mainly a tribute to the Prince Philip and Duke of Edinburgh, who passed away at age 99. And here's the news as it broke from the UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson.
It was with great sadness that a short time ago I received word from Buckingham Palace that His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh has passed away at the age of 99. Prince Philip earned the affection of generations here in the United Kingdom, across the Commonwealth and around the world. He was the longest serving consort in history, one of the last surviving people in this country to have served in the Second World War, at Cape Matapan, where he was mentioned in dispatches for bravery, and in the invasion of Sicily, where he saved his ship by his quick thinking. And from that conflict, he took an ethic of service that he applied throughout the unprecedented changes of the post-war era. Like the expert carriage driver that he was, he helped to steer the royal family and the monarchy so that it remains an institution indisputably vital to the balance and happiness of our national life. He was an environmentalist and a champion of the natural world long before it was fashionable. With his Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme, he shaped and inspired the lives of countless young people, and at literally tens of thousands of events, he fostered their hopes and encouraged their ambitions. We remember the Duke for all of this, and above all, for his steadfast support for Her Majesty the Queen. Not just as her consort, by her side every day of her reign, but as her husband, her strength and stay of more than 70 years. And it is to Her Majesty and her family that our nation's thoughts must turn today, because they have lost not just a much-loved and highly respected public figure, but a devoted husband and a proud and loving father, grandfather, and in recent years, great-grandfather. Speaking on their golden wedding anniversary, Her Majesty said that our country owed her husband a greater debt than he would ever claim or we shall ever know. And I'm sure that estimate is correct. So we mourn today with Her Majesty the Queen. We offer our condolences to her and to all her family. And we give thanks as a nation and a kingdom for the extraordinary life and work of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
And of course, very well said there, covering the life and the achievements and how popular he was. Well, right now, moving on, time now to get the message from our Prime Minister.
Good morning, everyone, on this very sad day, awaking to the news for many about the passing of His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. And on behalf of the Australian people and the Australian Government, I extend our deepest sympathies and condolences to Her Majesty and the Royal Family for the passing and death of the Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. Your Majesty, here in Australia, and indeed across the world, your Commonwealth family joins in your sorrow and your mourning and that of your family. But also, we give thanks for the life of who you described as your strength and your stay. Your Prince, Prince Philip. Husband, father, and great-grandfather. The Duke's life was one of duty and of service, of loyalty and of honour. Memories of him will, of course, tell stories of his candour and a unique and forceful and authentic personality. But above all, he was a man who was steadfast, who could be relied upon, always standing by his Queen. In Australia, we also know of that steadfast commitment and loyalty of the Duke of Edinburgh. Patron of some 50 organisations here in Australia. A legacy of 775,000 Australians who were award recipients under the Duke of Edinburgh Award Program. As the Governor-General reminded us last night, he visited our country on more than 20 occasions. On board the HMS Ramalli in 1940 as a midshipman. In that crowning tour when he had joined the new Queen in great ceremony and great excitement here in Australia. But there are also moments of deep compassion, in particular in the terrible bushfires of 1967 in Tasmania, where he comforted the victims and he toured the burnt-out Cascade Brewery. There are many towering figures that the world has lost and known, but few have been before us in our lifetimes for such a long time. His presence and service, a reassurance, a reminder of the stability we so often need in a world that can be so uncertain. With his passing, we say farewell to another of the greatest generation. The generation that defied tyranny, that won a peace and built a liberal world order that protects and favours freedom. An order that indeed Australia shelters under for our own peace and prosperity and stability to this day. But above all today, we think of our Queen. While your strength and stay, Your Majesty, may now have passed, Jenny and I pray that you will find great comfort in your faith and your family at this time. But we also, Your Majesty, say to you as a Commonwealth, let us also now be your strength and stay, as you continue to endure, as you continue to serve so loyally and so faithfully, as you have done over so many generations. She has been there for us over such a long time. Let us be there now for you, Your Majesty, and allow us to send our love to you on this, I am sure, one of your most sad of days. I am sure her Prince would join me in saying, God save our gracious Queen. Long live our noble Queen. God save our Queen. Later today, I'll be attending His Excellency, the Governor-General, to sign the official condolence book with Jenny. Tomorrow, I intend to attend St Andrews here in Sydney to give thanks and to pay our respects for the life of the Duke of Edinburgh. There will be announcements by the Anglican Church of Australia about other remembrance services that will be held, and I'll leave that to the Anglican Church of Australia to make those announcements. At pmc.gov.au, Australians can right now go and register their official condolences. That can be done, and they will all be passed on in the appropriate way to Her Majesty. In addition, hard copies, formal copies, we encourage members of Parliament, local governments across Australia to make those available for those who would prefer to do that in person, and I encourage you to make contact with your local Member of Parliament and with your local government to arrange to be able to do that, and I'm sure they will be putting those arrangements in place. Of course, encouraging all federal Members of Parliament to ensure that they are making that service available to their constituents, and I'd say particularly their more elderly constituents who I know will be feeling this particularly today. In addition to that, the Royal Family has requested that people from around the world, should they like to do more in paying their respects, to donate to one of the Prince's many, many charities and patron organisations. If you go to the pmc.gov.au website, you will find the link there to the Palace site, and there you will see the list of the many different organisations which span a great life of service. Later today in Canberra, there will be a 41-gun salute to mark the passing of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. But for now, we send our love to you, our Queen. We join you in your mourning and your sadness, and we join you in giving thanks and pray for your endurance and for your strength at this difficult time. Thank you.
The moving tribute there from our Prime Minister. Well, right now, let's take a look at some of the glimpses and highlights of his life.
Journey. Phillip always respectfully a step behind his Queen. She first laid eyes on him as a 13-year-old girl, and it's said young Elizabeth knew he was the one. Of regal blood, Phillip had a far from carefree upbringing. He was born on the Greek island of Corfu into a royal family imported from Denmark. A military coup in 1922 forced his family into exile. He grew up in France and Germany before being taken in by the Mountbattens when he was 7 years old. In a 2011 interview, the Prince was very matter-of-fact about his early life.
Well, I just lived my life. I mean, I haven't been trying to psychoanalyse myself all the time.
His uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, was to become the father figure he never had, and he followed him into the Navy at 18. That year, the naval cadet met the young Princess Elizabeth while she visited with her parents. He saw active service during the Second World War. Then, when the dashing naval officer returned to London, he and Elizabeth were secretly engaged.
This is the moment which the teeming millions have been awaiting for months.
In 1947, they married in Westminster Abbey.
I, Elizabeth Alexandra Mary,
take thee, Phillip,
take thee, Phillip,
to my wedded husband.
to my wedded husband.
When King George VI died, the couple was in Kenya. On the way to Australia, Elizabeth became Queen.
I, Phillip, will become your liege man of life and limb, and of earthly worship. In faith and truth I will bear unto you, to live and die, against all manner of folk, so help me God.
With the Queen's coronation, Philip's life changed forever. His naval career was over. He was now His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen's consort. He was no longer his wife's equal but her subject, and he had to find a role for himself.
The trouble is that no two marriages are quite alike. However, I think that the main lesson that we've learned is that tolerance is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage. It may not be quite so important when things are going well, but it is absolutely vital when things get difficult. And you can take it from me that the Queen has the quality of tolerance and abundance.
When he wasn't supporting his wife at official functions and on state visits, he ran the royal estates and the family.
Like all families, we went through the full range of pleasures and tribulations of bringing up children. I'm actually somewhat biased, but I think our children have done rather well under very different and difficult and demanding circumstances.
He became a moderniser at the heart of the British monarchy. Prince Philip was first member of the royal family to give a TV interview, and in 1957, the first to present his own television show.
40 minutes to get round the world.
He was a champion of the early environmental movement, but, in his words, not a bunny hugger. In 1956, he established the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. He's been a patron of nearly 800 organisations.
The media has practically no sense of humour about itself, so it's very difficult.
While giving only a handful of interviews over the years, Prince Philip has been a gift to the media, with his often indiscreet comments.
He caused something of furore when he asked a group of Aboriginal dancers if they still threw their spears at each other. Do you feel that the press has been unfair to you, has given you a bit of a hard time, misrepresented you?
But I suppose, yes, occasionally, but I think that it has its own agenda, and that's it. You just have to live with it.
In times of trouble for the royal family, Prince Philip provided support and advice.
Take care of the boys, Mum.
That's what we've been doing.
I know you did. That's the duty.
When Princess Diana died, her sons were uncertain about walking behind her coffin. Philip told William, "If you don't walk, I think you'll regret it later. If I walk, will you walk with me?" Happy birthday to you. On his 90th birthday in 2011, the Duke said he would slow down, but it wasn't to be. It was marked with the wedding of his grandson, an historic visit to Ireland with the Queen, and hosting the Obamas at Buckingham Palace. In 2012, during the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations, he was by her side again, doing a jaunty jig on the Thames. Now in his 90s, the Prince had several spells in hospital, but he always recovered. In May of 2017, the palace announced Prince Philip would withdraw from public life. He held the rank of Captain General of the Marines and watched on as the soldiers marched past and honoured him with a salute. One of Philip's final public engagements was to hand over his role as Colonel-in-Chief of an infantry regiment to the Duchess of Cornwall. Fiercely independent, he was still driving at 97 until he pulled out on a busy road outside the Queen's country estate Sandringham and was hit by a car that had right of way. The Prince's Land Rover overturned and he had to be pulled from the wreckage, declaring he was fine and asking if everyone was all right. He blamed sun glare for his mistake, but surrendered his licence a few weeks later, after being photographed driving without a seatbelt. Despite all of the controversies, he said he'd always done his bit as half of one of the most celebrated and enduring partnerships of modern times. The Queen said, simply, she couldn't have done it without him.
All too often, I fear Prince Philip has had to listen to me speaking. Frequently, we have discussed my intended speech beforehand, and as you will imagine, his views have been expressed in a forthright manner. He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
May his soul rest in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Australian Indian Radio's live broadcast this morning, 10th of April 2021, a very sad and historic day. Right now, let's take up the message from our sponsors.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. And don't forget that every Wednesday we bring to you the live updates of all the customs and trends and what's happening in real estate. Well, right now, let's take a look at the other news which everyone's been following, is the vaccine rollout. Here's a message from our Prime Minister.
That we need to be able to meet to do things such as the following. Australians who are vaccinated being able to travel overseas and return to Australia and not go into hotel quarantine, potentially go into home quarantine or not even to home quarantine at all. That will be a major change. And the extent to which Australians returning from overseas who have had recognised vaccines, also approved here in Australia with appropriate accreditation, can return to Australia on that same basis, and to enable, potentially down the track, travel from low-risk countries with similar vaccine arrangements. Now, no one is saying that any of those things are coming in today, but what we are working and planning for and have tasked the medical professionals who advise us on is what are the marks we have to meet to enable us to start opening up Australia more than we are now. Now, we already have the New Zealand open arrangement. We welcome that and we look forward to the success of that in the coming months. That will give us a greater degree of confidence about when we can move to other countries. I've mentioned Singapore before as an obvious next choice, but at this stage that is still some time away. So the message from National Cabinet is we want to open up more, we want to do it safely, we want to ease restrictions, we want to do that in a consistent way across the country, and we want to do that because we know we're not just managing the health, but we're managing the economics as well for people's livelihoods and well-being, and this is going to be an ongoing and increasing focus of the National Cabinet.
So this is going to be an ongoing, as the Prime Minister mentioned there as well. So let's hear from our Chief Medical Officer as he explains on that information that's needed.
One important point I'll make about the vaccine, which is the consent process. So you can imagine through the night, and you saw that the four of us stood up last night, within half an hour of having that advice given by the medical expertise to talk about what needs to happen to change. Of course, there's a lot of processes that have had to go through overnight, and thanks again, as others have said, to the staff in health and also our colleagues in the states and territories in relation to certain matters. One of those key ones is the consent process. So one of the recommendations from ATAGI was to make sure that informed consent process was absolutely and totally informed by this new information, and so that will be available today. In some states there was an issue therefore because of the lack of that new informed consent process being available. They've made changes to the program today, but that's a temporary matter and administrative. To reiterate, as we've all said, that the benefit of the vaccine outweighs the risk, particularly and specifically in that over 50-year-old age group. Just to a couple of matters in relation to National Cabinet. The PM's gone into all the issues in relation to the AHPPC advice. Again, I want to really acknowledge and thank my colleagues, the Chief Health Officers in the AHPPC that I chair, who came to that consensus opinion, advised their state premiers and chief ministers to go with that approach, which is going to really help in the reopening aspects. In terms of what's been asked in one of those elements that the PM has mentioned in relation to the future work for AHPPC, this is really just acknowledging the things that are not currently known, and the recommendations that we put to National Cabinet were based with those caveats, and so the task in the coming months is to try to identify those issues. What is the role and the nature of the effect of the vaccine program in relation to transmission of the virus? What about variants of concern? How may that change these matters, and what do we need to do specifically for those that have been shown to cause more severe disease or more highly transmissive virus? What is the length of protection that is given by the various vaccines that are being used? What about children when they should be vaccinated? How many Australians have been vaccinated? So that relates to the vaccine rollout and also the particular vaccines being used. So that's the task we've been given. We'll work through that in ways that we can and provide that advice so that can support future reopening.
And ladies and gentlemen, very soon I'll bring to you a message from our Prime Minister, who has set up the virtual condolence book, and I'll share the link with you in a minute. The condolence will be collated and sent back to Buckingham Palace. So he's asking all Australians to sign the virtual condolence book, and I will, in a minute, I'll share that link with everyone here. Well, right now, the next news, which is a little bit concerning as we have been following this story lately, is the re-outbreak of coronavirus in India, the way the control measures that have been put in place and what is actually happening there. As we know, there's been a sharp surge in the Maharashtra, and that state still continues to soar with the numbers. Let's take a look at the news from there.
That's close to 59,000 cases in the past 24 hours. The sharp surge in coronavirus cases in Maharashtra continue. The state has reported another 58,993 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours. That's close to 59,000 cases in the past 24 hours. 9,200 fresh cases have been reported in Mumbai alone. And in Mumbai, we are told 777 buildings have now been sealed after this surge in COVID cases. Unfortunately, 301 people have lost their lives in the past 24 hours because of this surge in COVID-19 cases.
And as you can see that, so many lives that have been lost there, and the cases are increasing. It is of great concern, and we will keep following up that news to see how things are progressing there in India. Right now, let's take a look at some of the functions and events taking place. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are. That's the news update for today. And as we said, this has been a very special segment, a very sad and historic day in our. Well, as I was talking about that page that's been set up, so here's that page. If you go to Australian government, you'll find this page, His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh. And if you scroll down, there is a section you can't see there because it's been different colors that don't come across well on the screen. But this is the page where everyone's been invited to go and sign in the virtual condolence book. Set up by Australian government. So it is recommended that you go and sign your condolences there as well. Of course, I know everyone's putting that on social media. All the feelings and what they feel about it. But if you go and sign that would be very, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you in this bulletin. And it's, as I mentioned before, this is a rather sad and historic day, the 10th of April 2021. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend or whatever's left of it. But don't forget that masks are needed if you're going out. Maintain those distances. And if you're going to any functions and events, please exercise care. Be mindful of all the rules and regulations. If you're going to any venue, don't forget to check in and check in properly. Don't just go, all right, I've got to do this check-in thing. When you check in, make sure that all your details are correct. The number of people that are going in are correct as well. It is very important that the information is correct. You could be just checking in, but make sure that, if someone else is accompanying you and if you're checking in on someone else's behalf as well, make sure that their details are there as well. Should something go wrong, the contact traces will have a better and easier task of trying to trace everyone and more accurate task of, getting those numbers and the details. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's goodbye from me from this segment. Until the next segment, it's goodbye.